what would you say if I suggested a movie to you and the way I sold it to you was this movie has no story, no script, no characters. Does that does that intrigue you,
It,
or is that like, well, what are you talking about?
I mean, it sounds like a tease. Like it could be just some epic setup. Like it's just a trap, but it could also be awesome.
I would,
How do you
I,
interpret that?
I would, at that point, I would not know how to address it because I haven't seen anything like that. So it'd be hard to like say, oh, I'm in. Like I'd be like, what? Well, then what does it have? Is the question.
Yeah, is it a documentary?
Uh, I do believe this falls in the documentary category. So the movie we're talking about is Samsara, or however you say that. It's from the makers of Baraka. So it'd be wrong to say that this is a one of a kind film because it's a sequel to Baraka, which is essentially the same movie. And it's very similar.
That was the dude with the knives on his arms in Mortal Kombat.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I don't think I saw that movie.
Right. And this movie was highly anticipated. Again, if you're into this type of movie, it's somewhat in the experimental category. It's what you would call an art house film. It's not wide appeal, and so to sell it is a strange thing, a strange undertaking, because I can't say to you, well, you like The Matrix, right? Then you like this.
What do you think is hampers its broad public appeal? Like, why is it not good enough for general audiences, or why is it not marketable or palatable to general audiences?
It has the stigma of an art house film, I suppose. Like, this is not the kind of movie that I would necessarily come up to you and say you have to watch it, because I don't know what your reaction is going to be. It has no frame of reference for almost anybody.
I mean, can't that in itself be a selling point? Like, hey, go watch this. It's
Sure.
unlike anything you've ever seen.
Yeah, and the way that I would sell it, I suppose, would be it's a documentary. And the movie is called Samsara. It takes the name from various religions, such as Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism. And the term samsara is a reference to the endless cycle of life and death. So in those religions, you have a life, and then depending on how you live your life, you are reborn either better or for worse. And then the life cycle repeats itself onto infinity, I suppose. And in this movie, we see it's a tale about life and death, beginnings and ends, and it's all expressed visually. Now, I said earlier that this film has no story. Well, it's not entirely true. It has an implied story. The story is told through the juxtaposition of images, which don't necessarily have anything to do with each other, but when you put the two side by side, they gain meaning. Right?
What would you say would be the general subject then? If it is a documentary and it's a play on imagery, does it have a definitive subject?
The subject seems to be life cycle, really. And so the way the film opens, and I hesitate to call this a spoiler, and it might be, but the way the film opens is on these monks in a temple somewhere, I guess in China, right? And they're constructing an image made out of colored chalk or something to that effect, colored sand. And it's a very intricate image. Like, it takes them a long, long time to do this. And this is something they do every day. They start it at the beginning of the day, and at the end of the day, they brush it aside. And the idea is to teach themselves about impermanence, which I guess that's one way to do it, right? And the film continues on that theme, which essentially talks about how temporary our lives are, or the lives of anything, or anything that we know in this world.
I mean, you showed us a couple clips, and I think if you were going to try to sell it to somebody, like just show them, it seems like you could show them any clip in the whole movie, and it would
Right.
be a sales point because
At the very least, it's a peek into other cultures.
Right.
The film stands on its own as a series of ethnographic studies. If you have any interest at all in anthropology, or maybe if you subscribe to National Geographic, something like that, it's essentially much like that.
I was surprised about the intensity, not because of the subject matter, but just the way they've captured it. Even from the previews that seem to go through the whole story, like every shot is just music playing in the background of a shot of something that happens in real life. But the intensity that I felt from
Right.
every scene, it just felt like it was like adrenaline. the
And that's
whole
another
time.
thing. The thing that this film might be the most known for is its soundtrack.
Are these soundtracks specifically made for the movies?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you can call it a score, I suppose.
Right, so you can just pop that into your
Yeah,
CD
pop
player.
it into your iPod.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way to spend the day.
So by ethnographic studies, can you elaborate on that point? Because I don't know that sounds like a selling point on the movie, other than that it could be a selling point. Like,
It's essentially a form of people watching. I think that people watching is something that we can all relate to. If you've ever sat in the window of a coffee shop, you create narratives in your head, even subconsciously, about the people who pass by the other side of that window. This allows you to do that, but it's with people on the other side of the world, for example.
okay, so like on a far grander scale.
Right.
All right. Like what sort of scale are we talking about? With
It was shot in 25 different countries, and I can't name them all off the top of my head, but largely in East Asia. So you have China is a big one. And there's some Taiwan. I believe the prison sequence takes place in Taiwan, I think. And gosh, you have United Arab Emirates, Africa, some country in Africa, America.
I was just surprised about the amount of excess it seemed that they had. Like,
Yeah, and that impresses me too. I can't imagine it.
I mean, just the food part. Like we, especially at least I know in the United States, they try to avoid letting that being shot.
Right.
And like, it just seemed like they had full access to things that people don't get to see every day, or very few people get to see at all.
Right.
And they had video access to show the world. And I think that's, like, I mean, it might say a lot about the clout they have or their salesmanship. I don't know, but it seemed like very high access.
They have very good producers on this. You have to.
So it's not just like ethnographic studies. It's showing those parts of civilization that have to happen to make it as it is, but we might think it's icky to think about. Is that
Yeah, it shows the good and the bad of everything that we know.
very? And does it try to categorize what's good and what's bad, or how is it
It
laid
does.
out?
I mean, there's definitely a goal here with the filmmakers. You could call it liberal if you wanted to.
From the
What
scenes,
does that mean?
well, from the scenes I've seen, you could argue that it would be very hard to justify that they had. I mean, I'm sure they have an agenda, and you can buy what they choose to show, but they really were just showing a day in the life of.
Right.
So it's hard, like, for you to say they have an agenda, you have to have a counter. You know what I mean?
Right.
You'd have to have an agenda of your own to see it. Like the food scene specifically, when they're showing the slaughter of the animals, like, you have to apply the agenda to it. They are just showing what happens every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's interesting that they can, like, have a social statement without really saying anything themselves. Like, you are applying the social statement to your, like, I mean, I was really questioning if I should eat pigs afterwards. Like,
It starts the conversation at the very least.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's no narration. There's no host.
No, there's no narration or host. It's all the score and the images. You do get. I actually haven't watched the film in a little while, but I believe you do get some dialogue at some point from people on screen. However,
Okay, but then
it's very minimal.
And that would just be live recording on scene and not
Yeah.
scripted dialogue.
Yeah, it's not like an
Okay.
interview. It would just be translations of words that were captured by the microphone, displayed on screen.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a movie unlike anything you've ever seen, unless you've seen Baraka, for example.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
there might be other ones out there, but I haven't heard of them. It's a rather niche market.
I mean, from what I've seen, if Baraka was that good, I'm surprised that it didn't start its own. I'm going to watch this and love it, but I'm surprised that there isn't more clones of it. Maybe because
Right.
you just can't do it as well as they did, but it seems so special that you think someone would say, like, at least a fan of it would try to tell a different story.
Right. There are videos which are similar, but not in the sense that they're feature films. If you ever have browsed through Vimeo, and I say Vimeo as opposed to YouTube because the content is very different, but if you ever browse through Vimeo, there's a lot of like somebody has a cool idea, and so they make a 3-minute video about it. And this is something you might see on Vimeo, I suppose, if that's your thing. That could be a good selling point as well.
So if you are a regular Vimeo viewer,
Yeah.
you're probably going to dig Samsara.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's like a big long Vimeo video with a decent budget at the very least. It was shot on 70 millimeter film, which I believe is the IMAX standard. I'm not sure about that. And can't beat it. 70. Although the time that I saw it in theaters, and the projector was not 100% consistent with where it placed frames. Like it had a bit of a jitter to it. That was the only downside to my experience in this movie.
Not that it matters, but how did this just get handed awards after awards when it came out, or was
That's a good question. I have to look it up.
Okay.
I don't even know.
Because it seems like it's, I mean, like to use the term Oscar bait, like it would just be like
You would think so.
they just hand them the award as soon as
Right.
it comes out. Like, no, you got this. I mean, it's stunning. Like the intensity of.
But I mean, all they had
Just
to do
visuals.
was show up in places and watch stuff happen. That's
Yeah, how hard could it be?
Yeah, exactly. I
And
don't know. My heart is still pumping from watching those videos. Like I was actually like drawn in and kind of wanted to not stop.
and if
just
there's
watch
no
everything.
narrator though, I think that might be a bit too much respect handed over to the audience to really qualify it for award territory. If they're gonna just show images and let you think about them, I don't know, man.
Right.
That doesn't sound like
What we
award
want to do
material.
just show security camera coverage and give Oscars to them. I mean, it's the same thing, right?
Right.
You could make that happen. Did someone do that?
What movie is that?
That's HBO's next series, I'm sure, and I'll enjoy it. I'll love it.
So it sounds like Five Nights at Freddy's, I guess. I haven't seen what you're talking about.
Oh no, I was just making the argument that
Yeah.
they just place videos wherever.
We were writing fan fiction here.
Oh, okay.
This Samsara /fic is on its way.
Right. I don't see any. I'm going through the page on Wikipedia, and I don't see any awards mentioned, but I could tell you Rotten Tomatoes gives it 76%.
The ultimate non-committal rating.
Yep. That seems to be like a standard score for Rotten Tomatoes.
Like either you like it or you'll hate it or somewhere in between.
Right. You just never know from that.
They're
Thanks,
like-
Rotten Tomatoes.
Their three scores are 10%, 76%, and 95%. Like that's
Yeah.
your.
Yeah. Either everyone gives it 0 stars or they give it 5 stars, and then you just end up with the average. It's weird.
Is that user ratings?
I don't
What
know.
goes
I
into
actually have never used Rotten Tomatoes. It's just plus or minus, right?
Rotten Tomatoes is they take
It's either good or bad.
it's either good or bad, and then they have a critic score and a viewer score
Okay.
separated out.
Okay.
So I mean,
it's just-
essentially, you may as well, if you were going to create a rating system, it may as well be, like thumbs up or thumbs down, because if you ever look at Amazon reviews, everything is 1 star or 5 stars. There's no in between.
well, that's
generally.
just from the consumer standpoint. If you get a product and you love it, well, of course you're going to write about it. Well, really, if you get a product and you hate it, you're guaranteed to write about it.
Right.
If you get a product and you love it, if you think you can sound clever writing about it, you'll write about it. But if you just get a product, use it, and enjoy it, what's to write? It's just a solid movie.
Yeah.
Had you seen Baraka before this?
I still haven't seen Baraka.
Okay.
I've seen clips from it. I have not sat down and watched
I
it.
assume when it was shot, it was using the best film.
That's an old movie. I need to look it up. I
Well-
believe 80s.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My
I
question
guess that's not
was
too old.
I
going to
remember seeing that in the video store not long ago,
Yeah.
like in my life that I can remember. So
No, early 90s, 1992. I take it back.
Yeah, my question was going to be so this was your first movie of this type you'd seen. When you walked in, did you start applying agenda to every, like, when you first saw the first thing, like, oh, this is where they're heading with this, and then like every scene you're just trying to like figure out what they're trying to tell you, or did you just
All I knew going into this was that it was. I think I had seen the trailer, so all I knew is that it was shot on 70 millimeter film and that it's a visual feast. That's about all I knew going into it.
So this is like the Bill version of a Michael Bay movie, is what you walked into.
That's actually a good way to put it.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm not expecting much huge, but I'm gonna go take a joyride,
Exactly.
and then it turned out to be amazing.
Yeah, because you can.
Cool.
The movie, at the very least, the movie is a technical achievement. It's a technical achievement for the images that it captured, and the moments that it captured. That's less technical, but you can't go wrong.
and these are some images that I've seen before, and it just seems like not like the way they captured it is perfect. Like I don't know another word to say.
If you ever met anybody who has said something to the effect of, "I don't get editing," like what is editing? Why does anybody care? You just like you shoot it and then you put it together, right? There's no like it's if someone doesn't understand the creative aspect of editing, this would be a good way to do that, because just about all of the dialogue is told through editing, through the juxtaposition of images.
I mean, I think reality TV is a fine example of what creative editing is.
Sure.
They can manufacture drama out of, I don't know, I don't really watch it, but they can manufacture drama. My wife keeps up with the Kardashians.
Yeah. All right. Thoughts? Questions?
I'm going to watch it. I'm excited to watch it. I am not the type of person that would say without seeing a preview that I would have watched it, but after seeing a preview, I can't. I'm just excited to see the whole thing.
Yeah. Again, I do believe this is on Netflix. The last time I checked, it was streaming on Netflix. And so you have nothing to lose if, again, you have that subscription.
Glorious. I'm just trying to figure the conditions under which I should watch it. Like, should I wait for the evening and dim the lights and have a glass of wine? Or should I just go watch it right now? Like, I need to know. Am I going to settle in for it, or am I going to cook while it's on? Does that question make sense?
Sure. Well, if you want to stay true to the movie, you would grab your gun. You hold your gun in your hand and fry some pig, and then it becomes more personal at that point.
Oh, so it's a movie about freedom.
That's right.
Oh, excellent.
I don't know, I guess.
I'm there. I can't wait.
I recommend it. It's, at the very least, if you've ever made the complaint where Hollywood has too many sequels, too many adaptations, and you're looking for something new, well, here it is.